Fort Worth, Texas, November 2001. A brutal double murder in the suburbs. 75-year-old Lloyd Courtney and his wife of 50 years, Agnes. Both savagely beaten and stabbed 75 times. Lloyd is a police fingerprint specialist. His own kitchen knife is used to stab a note to his leg, saying this is payback from a criminal he helped put away. But the story takes a strange twist when police arrest an unlikely suspect, the couple's daughter, 48-year-old Deborah Paringer. Prosecutors say this is no revenge killing, it's plain old greed. A jury agrees. Deborah is put away for life on 2 counts of capital murder. She's been crying innocent from day one. Deborah insists the real killer remains free. In the Christina Melton Crane unit in Central Texas, I've come to search for the truth. I'm Candace DeLong. As an FBI agent, I worked on the front line for the world's most powerful law enforcement agency. I went undercover, I trailed terrorists, and I interviewed notorious killers. It's my job to understand the people who others cannot comprehend. What kind of relationship did you have with your parents growing up?
My dad was the greatest man I ever knew, and my mom was my best friend. I loved my parents. Not a day went by that I didn't go to bed at night having had a telephone conversation that said, I love you, good night. My mom and I could not go to sleep without calling each other and telling each other, I love you. And then my dad would yell, I love you in the background, you know.
In 2001, Deborah Paringer was happily married with an 8-year-old daughter. But she and her husband had been out of work and struggling to get by financially. Deborah was on disability welfare, unable to work due to depression. And Deborah's mother, Agnes, confided in friends that she was stressed and concerned about her daughter's behavior. A year before the murders, Deborah told her mother that she'd been diagnosed with a serious mental illness.
I have bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder.
Bipolar disorder, a mood disorder.
Yes. A lot of people make fun of it. They say, oh, she's just bipolar. Well, if they knew, they wouldn't make fun.
What were you experiencing? What kind of symptoms?
I became withdrawn. The only things I would do is take our child to and from school and go to church on Saturday, and that was it.
And what would you do when you weren't doing those things?
Just sitting in the house, doing stuff in the house. Didn't want to go out. I didn't want to see people. I just wanted to be in my own little cocoon and veg. I would sleep 2 or 3 hours at night, maybe 1 hour, go for days with just an hour or 2 of sleep a day.
Over 5.5 million Americans suffer from bipolar disorder. Untreated, it creates periods of depression, followed by manic highs. For Deborah, these highs involve spending money, and lots of it.
I turned into a shopaholic, put us into a lot of debt, just buying nothing.
What did shopping do for you?
It made me feel whole. It gave me a rush like people describe drugs do.
What part of shopping did that? The looking for an item or the actual purchasing of an item? What was the thrill for you?
Going home, sitting on the couch or the bed, and having all the stuff I bought around me, looking at it, feeling it, you know?
That high gives bipolar sufferers a momentary release of endorphins, killing the psychic pain of their depression. But Deborah's retail therapy gets her into a world of financial hurt. Her debts mount up, and she has to ask her parents to bail her out. And they are by no means rich. Her father is working well into his retirement just to pay the bills, his and Deborah's. Deborah Paringer is serving a life sentence for the savage murder of her parents back in 2001. She says they've locked up the wrong person. Her father was a police fingerprint expert, and on his dead body was a note claiming the killings were the revenge of a criminal he helped put in prison.
You know, if you ask any policeman's child if they fear that their parent is going to be killed in the line of duty, if they say no, they're lying. We all have that fear. You know, I grew up with threatening phone calls, people calling our house, threatening to do something to me if he testified in court. He got a letter like, I think they said, my mother said 2 weeks before they died, threatening him. He turned it over to the police department and nothing ever happened.
And he received this letter where? At home, at work?
I'm not sure. They overprotected me, so they didn't tell me what was going on.
Did the police ever show this to you?
No.
How did you find this out?
It somehow conveniently disappeared.
How did you find out about it?
I'm not sure if it was the neighbor or a relative that they had told, that my mother had told.
This lack of detail troubles me. If my defense hinged on accusing someone else of the crime, I would make it my business to be certain of critical facts. Agnes Courtney had mentioned to friends that they'd received a few threatening phone calls. But police have no record of a threatening letter to her husband. I've never heard of a criminal bypassing the prosecutor and lead detective to take revenge on the forensics guy. There's a more likely suspect who really stood to gain from these murders: Deborah herself. At the time, she was a self-confessed shopaholic, off her bipolar medication, and deep in debt to her parents.
It's hard for an adult child to ask their parents for money. What was it like for you?
It was very difficult because I don't like asking people for help. I always felt like that was a sign of weakness. And today I know it's not, but I still feel that way. And so I felt like I had failed them.
Feeling like you had failed them must have been very hard.
Yes.
Terrible feeling. How much money did you borrow from your parents? Do you recall?
Well, let's see. I think they said it was $40,000
They said?
together.
Who's they?
Prosecutors.
You don't recall yourself?
No, I don't.
Okay, 40,000.
Give or take.
I find it extraordinary Deborah doesn't know how much she borrowed. She may be financially irresponsible due to her mental illness, or paying it back is not a priority. November 2nd, 2001. 75-year-old Lloyd Courtney fails to turn up to his job as a fingerprint expert at the Fort Worth Police Department. Concerned colleagues go to his home to check on him. The doors are deadbolted. There are no signs of forced entry. Lloyd is found on the living room floor, bludgeoned and stabbed to death. His wife, Agnes, is lying face down in the back bedroom. Her throat slit, her body battered.
It's so horrible to think about anyone going through that, let alone two elderly people. How were they beaten? With
They
a
said
weapon?
with cast iron skillets.
Their own cast iron skillets? Yikes.
My mother always kept those up on the stove.
They were hit so hard with a cast iron skillet, the skillet
That it broke, that they broke.
It's unimaginable. They're so heavy.
Yeah.
And what were they stabbed with?
They tried to say, I think, that it was this paring knife. But a paring knife? Does that make any sense? When they're stabbed so many times?
If this is the revenge murder Deborah claims, the weapons are odd. To me, they say spontaneous, not premeditated.
Someone went there to your parents' home with the intention of killing at least your father. One would think, that being the case, they would have brought a weapon. Have you thought about that?
I try not to think about that. I don't know.
These murders were very violent. Both Mr. and Mrs. Courtney sustained defensive wounds as they fought for their lives, a fight that would also injure the attacker. DNA test identified the spilled blood of 3 people at the crime scene: Lloyd, Agnes, and Deborah.
Why did they think you were the murderer?
Because I had been there that morning. I had a superficial cut on my finger that I had taken the Band-Aid off.
Tell me about the cut. Was it a fresh cut?
Yes, I had done it that morning at home.
Okay.
And I thought it'd stop bleeding. So I took it off, and I was gonna wash the little bit of dishes that they had in the sink, and I didn't realize that it was still bleeding. You know how sometimes you can kind of reopen a cut or it'll ooze? And so they found several drops of my blood in the house.
Where did they find drops of blood?
On the dining room table, on a drawer in the kitchen.
What was your blood doing in your parents' bedroom?
My dad had, when I was talking to him, he was back there on the computer doing something.
And then there's the note left on Deborah's father, conveniently pointing the finger at a vengeful criminal. Something about that note caught my eye.
I want to show you a couple things. This is a copy of an email that you wrote your parents. And there's some discussion here, and then at the end you sign it, haha. Okay. This is a note that was left on your father, presumably by the killer. How does it end?
Ha 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 ha.
Do you see how that looks bad?
See, I would never even think that way, though.
Right, but they do.
I mean,
Does that concern you?
no. I get the cards and things that her sister, my aunt, sends. She'll put ha ha. It's just,
Is that a normal way you would
Yes.
terminate a note? Okay.
The only other piece of evidence that supports Deborah's revenge theory is a neighbor's report of a man seen in her parents' backyard on the morning of the murder.
This is a composite sketch of a man that the neighbor said was in your parents' backyard. Does that look like anyone you know?
This mystery man has never been identified, and the lead went nowhere, while much more compelling clues lead in other directions. According to the prosecution, the murder of Lloyd and Agnes Courtney was driven by their daughter's desire for money.
What does that mean exactly?
That I wanted their money. They had life insurance policy, and of course they have their home, cars.
And what did you think of that accusation?
I thought it was ridiculous. Like I believe it was my lawyer said, and I don't, this is gonna sound rather crass, but he said, why kill the golden goose? You know, anytime I needed money, they always gave it to me, always. So why would I need to kill them to get more money? I knew I could always count on them to help me financially.
But Deborah's golden goose was keeping a tally of what was owed, up to $40,000, according to prosecutors. Deborah's mother told her that any unpaid debt would come out of her inheritance. That prospect seemed to make Deborah very interested in how wills are executed.
Police found a book in your car about writing wills and probate.
Yes.
They made much of that.
Yes, they sure did.
And what was it that they said about that?
Well, they said, oh, here she killed her parents for the money, and here's a book about wills. But when our daughter was born, my mother gave us that book and said, it's time that you wrote your wills. You have a child now, it's important. You need to do all that documentation.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept saying, okay. Well, we never got around to it.
Everywhere I look in this case, the evidence points towards Deborah, but she does not flinch.
Deborah, did you kill your parents?
No, I did not.
Are you covering up for someone that you know killed your parents
No, ma'am,
by
I am
taking the
not.
rap? Do you know who killed your parents?
No, I do not. I wish I did.
From the day she was arrested back in 2001, Deborah has never changed her story. She's innocent. But it took the jury just 1 hour to convict her.
Well, I couldn't believe it. My family couldn't believe it. My friends couldn't believe it. Anybody that ever knew me couldn't believe it.
What did you think?
I thought, you've got to be kidding. This is a nightmare, and I'm going to wake up, and it'll be okay.
Does it ever get any easier?
No. No, it does not.
I want you to imagine that I'm the person that killed your parents. What would you like to say to me?
Why? And it's taken me a long time, but I forgive you. And when you go to prison, I'll beg them not to give you the death penalty. Because my parents wouldn't have wanted it.
You forgive the person that did this to your parents?
I have to.
It's curious that Deborah asks why the killer murdered her parents. I thought that was what the note explained. I think she's asking herself, asking the person she became on that fateful day when her mental illness let her cross a terrible line. Is Deborah's forgiveness really for the mystery killer or for herself?